What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's daily market recap. I'm going to go over my trades from today. We just had a stock that squeezed up over 350% on the day on breaking news. It's a biotech stock, and in fact, it actually peaked at about 462% on the day, which is unbelievable. So this is good. It's the beginning of the week and we're seeing some big momentum. And guess what? I'm sitting green on the day, building my cushion Monday morning, not being crazy, not doing anything super aggressive, just focusing on locking up some base hits. So now I get to come into tomorrow, Tuesday, with a little cushion, a little confidence. And if we have more of this price action, guess what? I'm gonna feel comfortable stepping up to the plate. We have a good day Tuesday. Now Wednesday, I'm coming in firing on all cylinders. Wednesday, typically the best day of the week for me. And then Thursday and Friday, starting to ease off the gas going into the weekend. My goal is to be a consistently profitable trader day over day, week over week, month over month. I'm not someone who's saying, look, I made a ton of money last year. Now I can swing for the fences and take a lot of risk. You take a lot of risk and all of a sudden you can be red on the week, red on the month. No. I got to focus on producing consistent profit, and I want to try to do it, if I can, every single day. So that means I'm a little defensive at the beginning of the day, the beginning of the week, as I build a cushion. But once I've got a cushion, I'm comfortable taking a little bit more risk. So let's go ahead and jump onto the screen share here. Phio, this is a stock that squeezed up over 450%, 460%. It peaked here at a high of about $9.50. And right now it's on a little bit of a pullback. Now, this is not a stock that I was actually able to crush. Even though I did well in total today and I made money on this stock, this was not one of my biggest winners. Here's the problem. The stock popped up initially way back here at about 7:45 with breaking news, but the second it popped up, and this is really interesting to me, the second it popped up, there was a big seller on the ask. And I thought to myself, within basically 3 minutes of this popping up, okay, so it pops up and right away there's big sellers up here at about 360 and 370. And I thought, wow, who is selling this early and this much size on this stock? Because when I look at the stock, I'm thinking this is a stock that meets all my criteria for stock selection. Let's look at it. Let's analyze it. Now, if you've been watching, you've gone through some of my classes, or you've been downloading some of these PDFs I put together, I've got 5 pillars of stock selection. And they start number 1 with price. So what was the price of this stock? Well, the price when it first popped up was about $2.25. Now, that's a little low for me, but I'm okay with between 2 and 20, generally speaking. So then the next thing is, how much was this stock up? And this stock, because it closed yesterday at about $1.60, it's a cheaper stock. So basically, within the first candle, it's up 75%, 80% on the day. Now, I kind of have a minimum threshold that I don't want to trade it if it's not up at least 10%. And this thing was up, 75% or whatever the case was. So this was definitely far exceeding that, no problem. Number 3, relative volume. So because this is a stock that was spiking up with news, it had a catalyst, it immediately had higher volume than it would typically have on an ordinary day at this time of day. Currently right now, it's sitting with relative volume of 168. 168 times higher than average right now. So I set my minimum relative volume at a figure of 5 times higher than average. So this one's at 168. Yeah, that checks out. Number 4, I like to see there's a news catalyst. This one had it. And number 5, I like to see the float is under 20 million shares. And this one absolutely had it. The float is 547,000 shares. So you've got a stock that meets all 5 criteria for stock selection. It pops up and immediately you've got big sellers walking it back down. And so immediately, as soon as I saw that, I just thought, now that doesn't seem right. And I'm trying to figure out, where are those sellers coming from? Who is this selling all these shares? Now, what are the possibilities? It could be someone who's been holding the stock for a while, but usually someone who's been holding the stock for a while is not going to realize within 2 minutes or 3 minutes of the stock popping up that there's an opportunity to sell. In fact, most of the people that have been holding this for weeks or months are beginner traders who may not even be fully invested in trading. They might check their positions on their phone. They probably bought this on an impulse. Now they're stuck holding it. So they might see later in the day that it's up. but they're probably not going to see it within 3 minutes. Now, it's possible they could have price alerts set and this and that, but to be able to do all that and then put the sell order out that quickly doesn't seem very plausible. So then next possibility is it's someone trying to short the stock. Okay, could be. And if that is the case, if someone tried to short it that quick and with that kind of size, that contributed to the short squeeze that we ended up seeing today, if this was in fact a squeeze on early short sellers. It can be hard to affirmatively define something as being a short squeeze. We often think of something as a short squeeze because obviously anyone who's short is getting squeezed. But in reality, to have a true short squeeze, you do need to have relatively high short interest. So one of the platforms that I'll use to check short interest is Ortex. Ortex refreshes short interest intraday, but it doesn't show any significant short interest on the stock. So it doesn't have a high short interest score. The cost to borrow, obviously it's gone up recently and it's certainly going to go up today. But there's not an indicator that this is already coming into the day with high levels of short interest, of shorts who are going to be potentially getting squeezed. So then the next question I ask is, all right, well, is this a company that potentially needs to raise money, right? Now, what do we know about a lot of these pharmaceutical companies? A lot of these pharmaceutical companies run and operate in the negative. So let's check the last quarterly earnings report. So last quarterly earnings report here ending September of 2024 show that they had cash assets of about $5.3 million, cash on the books. So, and their liabilities are not super significant except for additional paid-in capital and this accumulated deficit. But right here, they've got $5.3 million of cash. So now the question is, what are their operating expenses? So for the 3-month period that ended September 30th, they've got $1.5 million in net loss. So, all right, $1.5 million. And over the 9 months, they were down about $5.5 million. So they are losing money, but they're not, it doesn't appear to be desperately needing cash like ASAP. They still have $5.3 million of cash on the books. Of course, that was as of September. So that was 4 months ago, right? So now, presumably another 3 months go by of spending $1.5 million on research and development. This is going to go down to whatever, 3.8 million. So it's coming down a little bit, but they still have some cash. Now, we could check and actually see whether or not they filed a shelf registration. I do see a recent shelf registration right here. So that gives them the right to sell shares on the open market and raise up to $100 million. So is this a company that could be selling shares? Yeah, I mean, it's not impossible. It's not. So, now we wonder, were those first orders to sell, was that potentially the company itself through a investment bank selling shares on the open market? Maybe, but I'm not really sure. So whatever the result is, or whoever those first sellers were, they spooked me a little bit. And so even though the price kind of squeezed up to 3, pulled back, and then popped back up here and pulled back, I didn't really trust it. Now, this surprised me right here when all of a sudden it rallies all the way back up right here and squeezes up this high. Now, this is where I took my first trade on. It was right in this area. I bought this dip, and it goes up to 360. And I was like, all right, that's boring. That's not a very big move. This was the big move, and of course, I missed it. Now it's getting slow. So it pulls back, it pops up again, it pulls back, and then right here it squeezes, and I was like, oh, all right, that was nice. From 380 to 420, but whatever. Pulls back, comes back up, and now we're starting to get a little closer to 9 a.m., and it dips down a little bit more. It actually dips back down to the volume weighted average price, and I bought right down here at 365. So I got a trade here down at 365. Stop was at volume weighted average price. I wish I had held those shares, but as you can see, it didn't work. I got stopped out. Goes down lower, then it comes back up. Son of a gun, you've got to be kidding me. And it rips into the open, and it almost halts up. Then it dips down, and then rips higher up to 520. Pulls back, and in this area, I'm like, this is just very volatile. it's too choppy for me and it would be too easy for me to give back my profit. So I'm going to leave it alone. It pops up to 580, it drops back down to 5, it pops back up to 6, it drops back down to 560, and then all of a sudden here it starts to pull away, and I'm thinking, all right, this is great, but I can't chase it. Now, meanwhile, we did have a level on the daily that we had to be aware of, which was our 200 EMA, right above $5 there. Once we broke above that level, I was looking to the next area of resistance. So breaking the 200 is very significant. So then I'm looking left and I'm thinking, well, none of these levels are really significant here. These are mostly all on lighter volume anyways. You have this candle here, which was light volume, and then you have this one here, which is a bigger candle. So I marked out these levels here of 854 and 945, and sure enough, look at where it stopped, right around 945, 950, the $0.50 there. Now, as it was squeezing up, right here, sort of in real time, I was watching this candle. Initially, this candle was a giant green candle up to 950, and I was like, oh my gosh, is this gonna go straight to 10? I missed the move. I'm feeling some FOMO. But then all of a sudden it started to change. So you know what I do is right now this candle currently that's forming has about 20 seconds left on it. That's this red candle. I know that because every 5-minute candle closes every 5 minutes. So it's going to close at 10:40. So it's got 15 seconds left on it. So now if all of a sudden a bunch of buyers came in and this closed at 7:50, it would have a bottoming tail. Or if all of a sudden a bunch of sellers come in and push it down, it could close at the very bottom, which would be a larger red candle. So now this candle's about to close. It's now closed. So what I was watching was as this candle was still actively being traded on the 5-minute, I was watching the 1-minute. So this candle right here was a 5-minute long candle that opened at 10:15 and closed at 10:20. So let's actually zoom into that candle right here on the 1-minute. Let's look at the 5 1-minute candles that created that 5-minute chart, that 5-minute candle. So this was the first one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is our window right here. So we opened, we squeezed up. This was still the beginning of the move. We pushed higher and then we flushed down. So that at this moment, we had a topping tail. And I was like, uh-oh, that's not good. We came back up, we double topped at 950. And then I already thought we would double top because of the topping tail and the higher volume red candle. So then we double top right here. And at that point, I was like, nope, that's probably the top. So you wouldn't have actually had to wait for that 5-minute candle to close to get your exit indicator. Your exit indicator came first with this large red candle right here that had that topping tail, and then the double top here that failed to break through the new high. Those were your two early indicators. This candle then comes down, we close right here, and the next candle continues lower. So then on the 5-minute, you get the first candle, this is a shooting star, and then this candle confirms the reversal by making a new low. That's your candle under candle formation where the next candle makes a new low. And now it's pulling back a bit more. Now it's not impossible that this could base out and give us another trade later in the day, but you don't want to overstay your welcome. And that's kind of the name of the game for me, because if you recall last week on Wednesday, I had my biggest green day of the entire year so far. Now, it's only like 7 days into the year, so it's not saying a lot. But nonetheless, it was a pretty big day. I was up $58,000. And then I pushed my luck a little bit. I kept trading a little aggressively going into the open, and I caught a trade actually kind of like this where, not exactly like this, but I got in a little too high, and then all of a sudden I'm on the back side coming back down, and the loss just started getting bigger and bigger, and I had to unwind it. I had to get out. So I really wanted to avoid doing that today, because sometimes what can happen is you break the ice on something like this with like a small trade here, a small trade here, a small trade here, and you're like, oh man, all right, finally. And then you're like, okay, here we go. Biggest trade of the day right up here. And look, in a hot market, maybe you get another 2 points there, but what happens is flush back down. And now not only did you give back all of the profit you made in the beginning of the move, you've actually gone, red on the stock and maybe red even on the day. So that's not fun. So just something to be thoughtful about there. Okay, so PHIO, this was our biggest percentage squeeze of the day, but SLRX actually right now is up a little bit higher at 328%. This one's actually coming up to a double top. See a little bit of risk there, the way it popped up and then flushed right in that candle. Right? So you could tell that there's people up there ready to sell and take profit. Maybe people who bought it too high up here who are like, oh my gosh, I'm getting out break even, thank goodness. Maybe shorts were taking a reversal trade against the move. But SLRX was the one that I actually did the best on today. And so I traded 7 stocks, as I mentioned. Let's see. Sitting right now, $13,784.94 on the day. I'll move this back down here for right now. SLRX was my biggest winner, but you know what? I actually started the day in the red. I went red $3,400 on my first trade of the day before recovering those losses. That was on GTBP, which popped up just at 7 a.m. I jumped in it a little too aggressively and flushed into the red. So I spent my first part of the morning kind of recouping losses on some of these trades, just taking small little breakout trades on the defense, trading with smaller size just to get myself back to flat. Got myself back to flat and then got a couple nice trades on DATS, XXII, and then finally SLRX was the one that kind of gave me the biggest profit. So on SLRX, this is a stock that came out with news, had merger news, and it immediately pops up from $1.50 all the way to $3.50. It pulls back, goes sideways, and then rallies here up to $4.50. Pulls back a little bit here, grinds higher up to $4.50, pulls back a little bit, punches up to $5. That was an awesome little breakout. Goes sideways, and then all of a sudden at the open, the chop, right? This big pop up, this flush back down, coming back up, coming back down. And I think honestly, the only reason that it squeezed up and halted once and twice here is on sympathy to PHIO. I think if PHIO hadn't made such a big move, we wouldn't have seen this kind of move on SLRX. But, you know, in any case, we did. And I missed both of them trading sort of later in the day. I made all my profit in the first 2 hours of the day, from 7 a.m. to about 9 a.m. And as we came up to 9 a.m., what happened for me was I actually started the day, well, as you recall, as I just mentioned, I started the day by going into the red, $3,400, just put 3.5, rallied back to flat, and then made my way to up 5K. And I was like, that's pretty solid. From there, got myself actually up to 10K and then dropped down to 8,500. All right. Then from there, got myself up to 11, dipped back down to 10, and then got up to 13. And when I got to 13, I was like, you know what? Let's walk away right here. You're at your high water mark, and this feels like a choppy day. So I had to ask myself, is this a home run day? You could say it was a home run day, and I didn't manage to hit a home run on a home run day, which is pathetic. On the other hand, you could say that pre-market was not a home run pre-market session. We had some stocks that popped up, but attention was a little dispersed. PHIO had some weird sellers. SLRX was a little slow to pull away. XXII squeezed, but the news was sort of meh, not sure if it was really substantial. But all of these stocks were holding up pretty well going into the 9:30 open. And then all of a sudden, you got that sort of second wave of momentum, which I didn't expect. Usually I expect that continued momentum when pre-market has been really strong. I don't usually expect pre-market to be choppy and then regular session to be strong. Usually they kind of are similar. If pre-market's choppy, regular session's choppy. Pre-market's strong, regular session's strong. But today it was sort of split, where it was a little choppy pre-market, and then during the regular session, it actually started to get pretty clean. So anyways, good job for those of you guys that were able to capitalize on this action through since the opening bell. It's great to see, and I think that it bodes well for tomorrow. Definitely. Now, all of a sudden, we've got multiple stocks up over 100%, 200%, 300%. This is definitely going to spark some momentum, I think, in the coming days, right? Because now traders are thinking, okay, holy smokes, we're seeing some big momentum. The next stock that pops up, that is a biotech that looks similar, because, right, what's that theme? These are biotech stocks. So SLRX, how closely does it meet the 5 pillars of stock selection? Price, it's got it, right? It's between 2 and 20. How much is it up on the day? It was immediately up over 10%. What's the relative volume? Relative volume on this one's over 1,000, 1,200 right now. Does it have news? Yes, it's got news. Does it have a low float? Yeah, it's 1.2 million shares. Now, DATS, got a couple trades on this for $2,000, as you can see. Gave us a little squeeze pre-market, and this was at a time where I was kind of just taking little base hits on anything that was moving, working to recoup my losses, but not being aggressive. And so I got a little profit on it, but this was a no news continuation setup. XXII. This one actually had news, but was a little bit choppy as it was on the previous session or 2 sessions ago. So popped up, pulled back. But definitely SLRX, bigger win there, very good. APTC, or sorry, ATPC, that's it. Nice action on this one pre-market, and then PHIO, just really impressive. So I think this is good. I'm excited. So I'm going to be back at it, streaming 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. And for those of you guys who haven't already done 2-week trial, link posted at the top of the comments and in the description. So check that out. And hopefully I'll see you in the chat room tomorrow morning, bright and early. When you're in the chat room during your 2-week trial, you will have access to my scanners and my charts and the news feed. And of course, my chat room and my live broadcast. So enjoy it. And I'll see you guys bright and early tomorrow morning. And reminder, as always, what am I going to say? Trading is risky. My results aren't typical. So please manage your risk, take it slow. I'll see you back here bright and early tomorrow morning.